the 15th of October, I decided I wasn't going to go to school. The activities of the day before was just too much. And they came to my house, some students from our school. I was laying in bed and they came to take me out of the bed and said, come, you must go, we're going to Wynberg. So we went to Wynberg. There was a march to Grassy Park High, and Grassy Park High was also one of those schools who didn't actively participate. And then they raided Grassy Park High, and then we got into this bus and told the driver to take us to Wynberg. There was a decision to march to Immaculata, Charlene's alma mater, and we decided because the girls were not allowed, and then the nuns came out and they were like, and it was just smoky and hazy, that feeling, and there was part of the leadership of the student body lived in Wynberg called the Pandies. You must probably go to interview them also. So we were at their house, so it's SB, and we're standing on the stoop, and they erected a barricade in the road right outside the Pandies' house at the Laksharama. And it was like, just like, flashing, like people running and commotion and people shouting, and the police just arrived and everybody ran in the house. And we were all in the house. I was still with Julian, the one who fetched me. We were in this room. There was like over 20 people in one of the bedrooms. I think people were everywhere. And the police, you could see them running past in the window. And so the main thing was, because now the police was coming in and hitting people. So the aim was to get out, not to be beaten with the quirt, with that upstate that they call it. And my word, I was grabbed by the scruff of my neck as I was coming out and dumped. When I looked, I was in a police van, at the back of a police van. And when I looked around me, I saw familiar faces, like people that I knew. Julian was arrested, and it was 10 of us who were arrested. And then we were taken. And the day before, one of the girls was saying, no, they arrested us and they let us go. So I thought this was going to happen. They arrested us, they rode around with us, and then they just threw us out of and in my naive mind, I really thought that was going to happen. But lo and behold, we were taken to the Wynberg police station. And we stayed for 48 hours. There was that law at the time where they could hold you without anything for 48 hours. That became the beginning of a long-standing relationship with 10 other people who fell, some has fallen by the wayside. We eventually became known as the Wynberg Seven. And thinking that this was going to be something that nothing's going to happen, like you just like an ostrich, just bury your head in the sand. No, it ended up being a trial. And I was in matric at the time, and Julian was also in matric, and then Venetia was the other girl. And then there was Ansaf Muhammad. So Ansaf was acquitted during the trial. So she also fell away. And then there was Rochelle Barrero. She was 14 at the time. So she didn't get a sentence. And then the one guy ran away. He just disappeared and he never came to court again afterward. So that's how we became known as the Wynberg Seven. And then the 7 of us were on trial for quite a period. It was a very dark period in my life. I was like living in a bubble, I think, because we became like a, what do you call this thing? How do you say? We became like an example for others, by the state and by the struggle as well. So, that was the time of the mass democratic movements. It was days of the UDF. It was days of Free the Children. And, and everybody wanted to speak to us. We were put on platforms which was like way beyond any, anything that I can imagine today, and we were young. And I was young. I was 17 when I was arrested. A funny story too. So when they arrested us, my name is a very funny issue. So because my name is Dee, D-double-E, and when they say Naam, so I say Dee, and they didn't want to believe me. And I say, full Naam, and I'm saying, my name is Dee. And everybody's laughing, like the others are all laughing, because they're like, no, that it's, that is my name. And the policeman is thinking I'm taking the mickey out of him. And so anyway, and then, so that is the one part of it. I'll never forget also, just in that nostalgia that comes back, is the clock of the church. There's a church there, and the clock was the one that could tell, because we were in the cells, and the clock could tell us the time, and we just became one at in that period. Now we're very estranged from each other. No, I truly believe that you're born an activist. It's not something that you learn. It's in you. It's in your psyche, in your makeup. I'll still be thinking about how to organize something. You want to just organize or just get people together and say, come, let's do it this day, let's do it this way. So activism is something that, and it takes a very special person to be an activist. It's not just, just off the bat that you can but it takes a special kind of person, because it takes full-on commitment to be an activist. That's what I believe. Yeah. Yes.
And then in your home, you said your parents would often have these conversations. Were they activists or?
I think my parents became activists. Like everybody kind of woke up when I was arrested, where you can actually say, yes, there is activism in my house, where there was open, people going to meetings, people coming to our house and so on, being involved in the mass democratic movement. And of course, my parents were very involved when we were arrested, because with the arrest of the Wynberg Seven, there was an organization called the Wynberg, oh God in heaven, Wynberg Parents Action Committee. I can't remember. For the life of me, I can't remember what it was called. But we were involved in that organization as well. So we would participate in, because when we were arrested and then we were sentenced, and then there was a huge petition to the Supreme Court to have our sentence rescinded. I think it's rescinded, taken away. So the Wynberg Action Committee, they were behind the whole thing, So we were sentenced 3 years. Two was suspended. And the one was 1 year in prison. And we were charged with public violence and being in the possession of explosives, aka petrol bombs. So the large amount of the pupils or the students who were arrested with me were all from SB. There was 4 of us from SB. Some were from Wynberg High. And then, so my cousin from my father's side was also arrested with me. And so he got 5 years, where 3 years was suspended, and then the 2 he had to spend in jail. So at that time, I think it's still like that, actually. The law hasn't changed around public violence. It's not a political offense. It's a criminal offense. So we would be with the population. So that was quite daunting. And you don't get off, you don't get parole or remission or any of those things like other prisoners would get. You must serve your full term. So we served 19 days short of our release, because we went into prison the 7th or the 8th of June, 1987. And I never forget that day, but we went into prison and we came out on the 19th of May of the following year. I was 20 or 19. It was, So we went in when we turned 18, when I turned 18. Some of us just turned 18. Some of us were 19. Some was a bit older, like my cousin Wayne Jordan. And then we all spent the so we were released, and then it was odd to be released because, you know, you don't realize how you become institutionalized. And we were just released on like, now you must go. The doctor, breathe in. You know, when the doctor says breathe in, he's already, the stethoscope is gone already. And then we were released. But, you know, like as looking now in, I can see that I was very traumatized. I just tried to wipe it out, you know.